Hey guys, this is Jim, WT1W, and you're watching FEPLabs Radio. Thanks for stopping by, appreciate it. So I was at the Stone Mountain Hamfest a little while ago, and I was out cruising the boneyard, which is where the cool stuff is at, and I picked this little guy up. This is a Simpson Multimeter. Now this is not digital, this is analog, and this is old school analog, and these are still highly favored by serious electronics nerds and hobbyists. And I'm not judging you if you're a nerd or a hobbyist. I'm probably a little of both. So the meter does what you'd expect the basic meter functions. It has multiple voltage ranges, AC, DC. I have not looked up a manual for this yet. This is the first I've actually messed with the meter. The guy that I bought it from demoed it. He'd put in a fresh battery. It worked. I got it. I scored this for 40 bucks, which I thought was a great deal. It has some features which I think are kind of cool. Of course, it does amp ranges, and these are milliamp ranges. We have our common for regular voltage measurements here. If we're going to do current measurements, then we're going to move our red probe over here to the current amp range and set it here also on the dial scale. And this is rated up to 10 amps. It also will go up to 1000 volts AC or DC. As I don't fool with that, I'll probably never use that plug. I don't know, because I have not read a manual, what the output does for this meter. I don't know what kind of signal comes off the output. So that's probably something I'll do down the road, is stick this output onto an oscilloscope and see what it's putting out. Of course, it also does resistance. Now, a cool feature that this meter has, and there's probably more that I don't know about yet, is that on the resistance ranges, any of them, it has an ohm 0 right here that lets you calibrate the meter to 0 ohms. So if we grab our probes, and these are the probes that came with it, and these look pretty white trashy. I'm going to search around and see if I can get some good probes to go with this meter. And if any of y'all know a good place to buy some high quality probes to put on this meter, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to find out. There is our ohm range, and we can adjust this right here to zero out our resistance reading like so, which I thought was pretty swank. So it's not self-calibrating, you manually calibrate it, and you can do that easily anytime you use it. The scale, of course, it's got a nice big screen gauge. I wouldn't call that a screen. And of course it volt, ohm, and milliamps. Let me hold this up to the camera a little better. So over here we have our ohm range, and you can see that that is a graduated scale in ohms, 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, on up to 2K it looks like. We have our DC voltage ranges here, which line up with what is on our knob right here, our selector knob. And then we have our AC range. And this also has a dB range on it, which may be related to what this output is. I'm not entirely sure. I also don't know what plus IV and minus 10A do, what those specific ports are for. I have never had a Simpson meter. I've never used one. My friend Hollywood thinks these things are the schnizzle for Rizzle. So when I got a chance to pick one of these up for a very reasonable price and it worked, I had to grab it. Before we open it up and take a look at the innards, let's check our power supply voltage on this guy and see what that looks like. I've got it on the 50 volt range and plus DC. And that looks like we are pushing about 13 volts. Because you can see here, this is hard to hold these probes in with one hand. There is our 50 volt range, the middle black range here, and there's 10 volts, 11, 12, almost 14 volts on that scale. So if I change the scale, of course you'd read a different range, and this has 10, 50, and 250 volts for the DC scale. Alright, so it does read voltage. This is coming off of the old Astron 7 amp power supply I bought. Let's take a look at the innards. So in here you can see we have, it looks like 2D batteries, 1D battery, and then a fuse, and then our 9-volt battery to provide power. And I'm not sure which battery does what. If we pop the battery out, this looks like a generic battery. The contacts in there look reasonably okay. You know, this thing is ancient. And then we have, of course, our fuse and our 9-volt battery, and I don't know which battery is for what. Again, haven't read a manual on this. Now, I have never taken one of these apart. Okay, good. So I'm always concerned that something's going to spring out and get me. So this, of course, is our switches for it, and then here are different adjustments, it looks like, and I don't know specifically what these are for. You can see this has some definite age on it, and I can't tell you right now if this is all factory parts or not. It looks like it may be. Those look pretty elderly. And if we take a look at the inside, and I am not pulling this board off, we can see inside where the connections are made and where the meter itself hooks to the board and gets its feeds from. And then down here on the end, we have a big honking electrolytic there, a 400 volt. Is that a resistor? I can't tell what that is. Yeah, that might be a resistor. That would make more sense. And I don't see... Yeah, I believe that's a resistor. I'm not smart enough to know which it should be. Because what I would look for is some old capacitors that need to be swapped out potentially, but I don't see anything in here that I can identify as a capacitor. These look like just some high performance resistors and high current resistors in here, I would imagine. Low tolerance resistors as well. That's a 1% there. So anyway, there's a quick look at the innards. And then if we wanted to take this apart the rest of the way, I would have to remove the knobs, it looks like, and I don't want to screw this up. It actually works, so I don't want my ham-fisted thumbs inside this thing. The only downside to a meter like this is probably what's called bakelite. And as bakelite ages, it tends to get fairly brittle. Not that it's not brittle when it's new, but the older it gets, the brittler it gets. So I got to be kind of careful. I don't think I want to drop this because it will probably shatter a good bit of the case or this gauge. In any case, I think it's a pretty decent find for $40. Hollywood loves these things and says every real technician should have a Simpson analog meter of some sort. I have not ever had an analog meter that I remember. I've had some low-budget Radio Shack ones from the 80s, but I've never had something like this. So I thought this was a pretty cool find. Guys, that's it for this video. If you would, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. All that stuff is in the dingleberry below, so you get notified whenever I post any new videos. Thanks, y'all, for watching 73. Have a good one.